Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Nazir Daf Chavdalez. We are holding at the Mishnah, which is on the second line from the top of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Ha'isha shenadru b'nazir, a married woman accepted upon herself Nazirus, ve'frishes behemta, and towards the end of the Nazirus term, came time to bring the karbanis. She set aside karbanis. Which karbanis? The three karbanis that are brought by a Nazir Torah at the end of his Nazirus. That's the chatas, the oila, and the ayil, the ram, as per the shlomim. So she designates these karbanis, and then guess what? Husband steps in and disrupts the whole system. Husband comes in and does hafara, cancels the entire Nazirus. What happens to the animals, which were slated for hakrava? Well, it depends whose they were, who owned them, who sponsored the animals. Im shaloi hoisa habehima. If the animal belonged to the husband, he's the sponsor. Well, I only meant to give it to you if you'll need it. You don't need it, it goes back to the herd. It goes back to the farm. Teitze v'tira be'eder should go out and pasture with the herd, basically. It was never really kaddish because you never needed these behemoths. That's if it's his behemoths. But if the animal belonged to her, the Gemara will explain how exactly that happens. She's the sponsor of her own animals. In that case, the kedusha that she applied to those behemoths are still intact, notwithstanding the fact that she lost her nazirus. And therefore, achatos tamas, the animal meant for the chatas, is put to death. There's no other alternative because it already attained kedushas chatas, and now that it has no purpose, it has no owner, so to speak, to look after it. Halachal Mishmesina dictates that it goes lemisa. So that's the chatas. But regarding the oila and the shlamim, there's a more simple solution than that. You can bring an oila as a donation. Likewise, the shlamim can be brought regardless of whether she is a nazira or not. V'oila tikarev oila. So oila is brought as an oila snadava, donation. Shlamim tikarev shlamim, the same with the shlamim, bring it as a shlamim, but it has extra limitations as per the ayel, the shlamim of a nazir. Typically, a shlamim is eaten for 2 days plus, but here it's v'necholan liyom echad. It must be eaten within a day, as per the halacha of a shlamim belonging to a nazir, because it already attained that kedusha, it attained that status, and is limited with all the limitations of the nazir's carbon. Ve'enan to unin lechem. In contrast to this standard, ayil nazir, the shlamim of a nazir, which comes along with a batch of lechem, breads. Here, there's no need to have bread because she is no longer bringing it as a shalmei nazir. So it's a shlamim without bread. So until now we discussed what we do with the animals. Depends if it's his, then it just goes lechulin. If it's hers, she must bring it in the manner described. What about if there were no animals brought yet? We only have funds set aside for her karbanis. What do we do with that money? Of course, we're speaking that it's her money. Otherwise, there would be no issue. We'll just go back to the bank. So if she has a bundle of money, sutumen, which were not yet divided and designated and labeled, chatas, oil, and shlamim, we have just a batch of money. In this case, we're more free to do, to apply a broader, easier solution. Yiplu nadava, just send it to the Beis Hamikdash, go into the nadava chest, used to purchase oilos for the mizbeach. What if it's mois mefarashin? They have been labeled. This money is for the chatas. This money is purchase money for the asham. This is for the shlamim. So now it's treated differently because it already attains that specific kedusha. Mois mefarashin, if they've been designated, been spelled out explicitly, Dmei chatos, the money for the chatos, Yelchul Yam HaMelech, must be dumped into the Dead Sea, basically out of reach. You can't have any no. This matches the process that the Mishnah described as per the Behemo, chatos tamos. Same with the money. Has no purpose now, has no use, has no function. Throw it away. Lo inanan, midrabanan, you can't have an off from it, but lo moyelin. If one does partake, one does benefit from that money, there's no me'ilah. Me'ilah is designated to kache Hashem, something which is slated for the Mizbeach. Well, not this. What about the me'ilah? Very simple. You have a oilah. Purchase an oilah with it, bring it on the Mizbeach, u'mo'alan behen. In that case, benefiting from the oilah generates me'ilah, because it's a regular carbon. Same with the shlomim. The mei shlomim, the money intended for shlomim, is meant to be used to buy a shlomim, yaviyu shlomim, which has the same rules and restrictions mentioned earlier. Nechol yom echad, must be eaten within a day of the akrov. V'ein tu'un lechem, it comes with no accompanying bread. Let's go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. An Isha was a Nazir, husband stepped in, disrupted the Nazirus. What about the Behemoths, which were earmarked for her Karbonis? Well, if it's he's the sponsor, don't worry, send it back to the farm. Mantana, the Baale Mishtabadla. Now, we're treating the Behemoths differently than if they were her Behemoths, because if they were her Behemoths, then we explain that the Kedusha still is retained, and we have to treat them accordingly. Who is this Tana? Who is the author of the Mishnah? Which opinion is reflected in the Mishnah? This opinion which treats his animals differently than hers. Evidently, the husband is not mishubad. He's not bound. He's not committed. He's not obligated to sponsor her behemoths, because otherwise, if he would have to give it to her, as per their marriage commitment, as per one of the Tana'i Ksuva, the conditions of the Ksuva, just like he has to feed her and support her, he has to sponsor her karbanis. Of course, we're not speaking about donations that she may decide to give. Well, it's endless. He's not committed to that. Nor are we speaking about any obligations which predate the marriage. Again, he's not obligated. He's not responsible for that. Rather, we're speaking about specifically about chiyuvim, carbon upon birth, etc., which occur during that marriage. If he should be obligated to provide, the Gemara at this point understands, then it's like she has a zechus, she has a right to that animal. It's like hers. And therefore when it's Kaddish on her terms, and it's treated like she's the sponsor, in which case, even if he's the one actually giving the animals, the halacha applied in this case should be no different than the halacha applied when she's the sponsor. The Mishnah differentiates. The Mishnah seems to present a distinction. When it's his animals, don't worry. Send it back to the farm. If her Nazirus becomes nullified, who is this Tana? That he is not Meshubad, that he is not responsible. He doesn't have to give it to her on her terms. Man Tana the Baal loy mishtabadlo. Omar Chizah, this is Shitas Rabbanan he. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says he is responsible, then it's her right. She accepts it on her terms. This is Agadaitach Rabbi Yehuda, because if the Mishnah would be Rabbi Yehuda speaking, Amai Teitzivitir Beider. In this case, when she's no longer a Nazir. Why did the behemoths go out to the farm? Why is their kedusha non-existent? Hamishtabad, he's mishubad. He's obligated. He's bound to her chiyuvim. He must sponsor her karbanis. She has a right to claim those karbanis. They're rightfully hers, and therefore, when they became kaddish, they're kaddish on her terms, as if she's the owner. And they should stay kaddish, just like the Mishnah speaks about the animals coming from her. Shalah Haisa Behema are Kaddish. Why do we differentiate? Apparently we're not working with Rabbi Yehuda, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, he is Meshubah to give it to her, the Sanya. Where do we find this Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, that a husband must sponsor his wife's karbanis? Rabbi Yehuda, maybe karban ashal ishtai. Let's say his wife needs to bring a karban upon childbirth. So we know there are some karbanis that are called oila v'yerid. Right? So there are different tiers based on your financial standing. A wealthier person brings an animal, otherwise you can bring a bird, right? Depending on your ability to pay. What if his wife is chayiv to bring one of those karbanis? And typically a wife doesn't really own any assets. It's all her husband's. And this fellow is wealthy as can be. Can she get away with just, a bird? Or must he sponsor her karbanis as per his financial standing? An animal, like a wealthy person. Rabbi Yehuda answers, yes. Adam may be karban asher al ishta. You must bring a wealthy karban, something which is appropriate for a person in the highest financial bracket, because he's the one paying for it. He's the one meshubad. V'chein kol karbaniseh shechayeves. Likewise, he must supply any karbanis of chiyuv which she is chayiv to bring during their marriage. In fact, that's what we see from the receipt, the shaver that she writes to him upon divorce. She's acknowledging that she received all the payment for all the karbanis. Apparently, he's chayiv to do it. Shekach kasav lo. Now, according to the Gersi, he brings in the bottom. Taisus brings Rashi. Shekach kasav is lay. As per the text, in the receipt that she provides for him upon divorce, kol achrayis isli Allah, all of claims that I lay upon you, mikadmas throughout all the all this time when we were married, mikadmas I'm absolving you. You've given it to me. You've paid. Apparently, there's a chiyuv aside from the standard chiyuvim that he has to give, and that's the karbanis. So bottom line is, Rav Chizda proves that the Mishnah, which treats his animals differently than her animals, apparently is following Shittas Rabbanon. He's not Meshubah to give it to her. Maybe he gave it to her as a gift, a goodwill gesture. Only in as much as you need it. If you don't need it, it's back in the farm. Whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, that he's Meshubah to give it. It's like it's hers. It's like she owns it. It's her schos. It's her right. It's given to her on her terms, and it's treated like an animal that she provided. In which case, the kedusha is still maintained, despite the fact that her Nazirus fell by the wayside, as per the halacha in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah is Rabbanon. Rav Amar no. Rava disagrees. I feel Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah can work even to Rabbi Yehuda that he's meshubet to supply his animals. Still, it's a limited obligation. Ki meshabed lo. His obligation is only b'milsa d'tzricha, something which she actually needs. Sure, if you're a Nazir, I'll pay for the animals, but b'milsa d'tzricha is something which she doesn't really need because her Nazinus did not play out. Well, he's not mechuyev to give that. So Rava disagrees. It works even according to Rabbi Yehuda. He's only responsible in as much as she's really in a need. But if it turns out that she was no longer a Nazir when time, for Hakrava came about, then why does he have to supply? Ikadami, here comes another version, version 2 of the Gemara. Ma'an Tana, who's the Tana of our Mishnah, who differentiates between her animals, which maintain Kedusha, and his animals, which go back to the farm. Amar Rav Chizda, Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda speaking. So even though he's obligated, he has to supply, he has to sponsor, it's only in as much as she really needs it. The shibud that's coming from him to her, it's only pertaining to something that she really needs. Something which she doesn't actually need. Like in this case, when she lost her Nazirus, he's not obligated. And that's why the Mishnah says, if it's his animals, send it back to the farm. The Rabbanan, because according to Rabbanan, just the opposite, according to Rabbanan, it wouldn't work. Really, husband doesn't have to supply these animals. So how do we have a case where she's actually using his behemoths? Apparently because he gave it to her, he gifted it to her. Well, guess what? Once you give it to her, no backsies. Once he gave it to Matana, now it's hers. So even though the Naziris fell apart, the animal is hers, and she was magdashit. So why would the animal go back to the farm? Rav Amar. Now comes Rav and says just the opposite. So this version is basically a flip of the first version. Here Rav Chizda is proposing that it's Rabbi Yehuda, and Rav is going to say just the opposite. I feel the Rabbanon. The Mishnah could work even with the Rabbanon, that he actually gave her the behema as a gift, but I only gave it on condition that you really need it. Ki machni lo nami b'musad tzricha. I only gave it to you if you really need it. Right? The husband only gave it to her because she needs it. He's not going to give it to her if she doesn't really need it. Don't be magdish it if you don't really need it. It's on condition that your Nazirus proves successful. As opposed to this case, when he was mefer, he gets back his animal. So back to the Mishnah, we have an Isha who made herself a Nazir. Husband was mefer the Nazirus. What happens to the karbanis? If they were hers, privately owned karbanis, then the kedusha is maintained. Taisus brings the Gemara back on the Chafalev, reference to Blazer Kapar. There's the tsar, the privation. She's called a choyte. So even if the Naziris didn't actually conclude properly, but she accepted upon herself tsar, and the kedusha that she applied to the carbon stays. Taisus says a lashon there, gomra umagdishla. She meant that it should stay kaddish for all time to address her deficiency. The same thing with the oila and the shlamim. They're brought as an adava. They don't lose their kedusha. But if the animals are his, send them back to the farm. So according to the first version in the Gemara, Rav Chizda tells us this must be Rabbanan speaking, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, he's meshubed, and when she makes it kaddish, it should be kaddish on her terms, as though it's hers. You can't send it back to the farm. And Rabbi says no. Even Rabbi Yehuda would agree. He's only obligated in as much as she really needs it for her Nazirus, as opposed to this case, well, she doesn't, send it back to the farm. According to version 2, Rav Chizda says, this must be Rabbi Yehuda. Husband is meshubed, but only in a limited sense, if she's really obligated. Because according to the Rabbanan, how did she get his animals? He must have given it to her. Once he gives it to her, it's hers. And they're kaddish on her terms. Rabbi says, no, even according to the Rabbanan, he gave it to her. If she needs it for her Nazirus. In this case, she didn't need it. Now, what happens with the ma'is, if there were money set aside, if they were just stumen, undefined bundle of money for all the karbanis, yipulun and dava. If they were specified, then we have the chatas money, tiyam melach, oil and the shlamim are used to purchase karbanis. Continues the Gemara. Im shelo hoisa behemasa. If the animals actually belong to her, she was the owner, she was the sponsor, then we treat them differently. Then the kedusha is maintained. Chatos tamas, v'oila tekarev, himanala. How does she have money to buy animals? Ha'amras masha kansa isha kanabal. We know for a fact that whatever the isha owns belongs to the husband. Amar av papa shekam tsasam isasa. She held back from her food. She saved up in that way. Iba yisem another pshat. Da'akni la'ach, a stranger gave her a gift, v'amala, with a condition, with a stipulation. I'm giving it to you, unless provided your husband has no access to this money, it's totally hers, which she can use to buy her karbanis. What do we do with the karbanis? Bring it as an oilas nadav, shlamim to karev, shlamim without the bread, which is unique. An ayel nazar without bread. Amalei Shmuel turned to this person lavua bar'i with a riddle, with a challenge. Like Taisif, don't sit down al karach on your feet. They used to sit down on their folded feet. Don't sit down. I want you to stand, stay standing until you can give me the answer to this question. Ad Amrsli Hadamilsa. Explain to me the following. Give me 4 examples of the animal belonging to a Nazir that come without bread. The answer is Shaloi v'shalah v'shlach armisa shlach kapara. His, hers, after husband's passing, after owner's passing, after owner's atonement. Okay, what are these things? 4 examples of the karbanis nazar, which are brought, but without the bread accompaniment. The Gemara will explain. Shalah. What does shalah mean? Hadamar, the case we just said, Anisha was mafresh a carbon. Her Nazirus fell by the wayside. She brings it without bread. What's the case of Shaloi? His, the Snan, as we have in a Mishnah. Ish madir as b'noi b'nazir. There's halacha. A father can activate Nazirus on behalf of his son. He can get his son to be a Nazir. Ve'ena isha maderes es b'no b'nazir. A mother cannot do that. We'll see this later on in the Masechta. Even a father can only do it provided there's no protest. But suppose Gilach, he took a haircut. In spite of his father's, interest in him becoming a Nazir, he took a haircut. To show that he rejects the Nazirs. Or his relative cut his hair. Or Micha, he outright protested. Or the relatives did it as such. He's no longer a Nazir. What happens to the animals which were designated for the korban? If we have just money, undefined money, send them to the Ndava. Mois Mefarashim, designated monies. Dmei Chatas Yelcho Yamamelach. Dmei Oilo Yaviu Oila. Umei Alam Behem. Dmei Shlom, the money meant for the Shlomim. Viu Shlom is meant for the Shlomim. V'nechol Yam Echad, eaten within one day, without bread. Ve'enan Tunin Lechem. So this is the Ayel Nazir, Shaloi, without bread. We're calling it Shaloi apparently because he's the one, the father is the one who tried to impose it and didn't really work. What about Shala'achar Misa? The Ayel Nazir which is standing here after its owner's passing. Where do we have this case? Manolan, the son, Snan, Hamafresh, Mois, Linzerusay. A fellow sets aside money towards his Karbanes Nazir. Loy Nelen, Loy Malin. He may not have enough from it, but there's no Me'ilah. Why? Why do we say V'loy Ma'alim Bahem? The fact is, part of it is meant for Chatas, which carries the Me'ilah potential. The answer is because technically, technically, if you find a real luscious looking animal and you decide to use all that money for the shlamim, right? You want to buy it for a shlam and use it, use up all the money for that, you can do that. So technically, all this money is a potential shlamim money which doesn't, it doesn't have me'ilah before the zrika the mafarish brings. So in any case, there's no me'ilah on this money. Mace. Suppose the owner passes away. V'oiloi mois says to him, and he left over this money. Yipul dava, send it to the Beis Hamikdash for Nadava. Mois for Russian, they've been specified and earmarked. So you do as follows: Mei chatos, the money meant for the chatos, straight to the Yam HaMelech. Yelach Yam HaMelech. Loi nenen, not meant to have no, but loi moyel, there's no me'ilah because it's no longer meant for mizbeach use. What about the money for the oila? The mei oila, you have your oila, you buy with an oila, umoy alam behen, and there's me'ilah involved there. To mei shlamim, meant for the shlamim, you have your shlamim, you buy a shlamim. The nechol niyam echad, eaten within a day. Ve'enan tunin lecha, with no bread. And the reason is because in describing the bread, bringing process, the Torah relates to kapei hanazir. The Nazir actually will grab on, will do a tnufa with his hands. When there's no Nazir standing here, there's no owner, he's passed on. There's no point in bringing lechem. The same with the next case. Shlacha kapara. Suppose the Nazir owner lost his money, he found other money, he brought his carbon already, it's over. He doesn't need any more carbonis. So in that case as well, if he happens to discover this money, use it for a shlamim, a donation without bread. Svaro, it's just plain logic that there's no bread involved. It's just like lachar misa. Lachar misa ma'atam, ma'atam lo ychazil kapara. Why, in the previous case, when the money is being used for a carbon lachar misa, there's no bread, ma'atam adelai, ma'atam lo ychazil kapara, because there is no atonement, there's no owner, there's no kapei hanazir to be involved. Shlacha kapara nami, the same with a situation where he already had his kapara. Nami lechazil kapara, there's no kapara involved, meaning he doesn't need it for kapara, and he's not going to do the process with the kapei hanazir, with the tnufa, and therefore, if you can't fulfill and carry out the process as prescribed, you don't bring the lechem. So we have 4 examples of ayel nazir without lechem. One more, Vasul Lekha, that's all. There's one more, Vayika. Listen to this halacha. The Tani Levi, Vishar kol shalmei nazir. Sheshachtan shleik mitzvasim. Any shlamim of a nazir, which was shechted out of order. One pshat is, shleik l'shma. It wasn't done, for the sake of the nazir. He had something else in mind. ksheira, it's still kosher. It doesn't really disrupt the kashrus of the carbon. It's still kosher, but it doesn't count for him. The owner is not credited with that carbon. He has to bring another one. What happens to this shlamim? It's a pseudo, shalmi nazir. It must be eaten within a day, as per the halacha of shalmi nazir, but there's no bread. And also, zroya. This is the forearm of the ayal nazir, which is separated and goes through a separate process, a tnufa. It doesn't have that system. So bottom line is, we have a fifth case of a ayal nazir without bread. Why was this omitted from Shmuel's list of 4 cases? It's a fifth one. The answer is k'mitzvasim k'chashiv. Shmuel's 4 cases involved the carbon properly brought. And he has 4 examples of properly brought ayal nazirs without bread. Why don't they have bread? Product of various circumstances. There's no owner, there's this, that. But shalaykim mitzvasim. But your example of a carbon shalay l'shma, that's an improperly brought carbon, like a chashiv. He didn't mention that, but of course you're right. This potentially can present case number 5 on that list. Okay, let's summarize today's daf. An Isha became a Nazir, and the Naziris fell apart because of her husband's interference. What happens to her behemoths? If they're hers, they stay Kaddish. If they're his, they go back to the farm. How does she have hers? She found a way to sponsor her karbanis, whether internally or whether by way of an outsider who gave it to her on stipulation, no husband's involvement. What about her monies? Again, if they're his, back to the bank. If they're hers, if they're shetumim not yet specified, they go to the Nadava to purchase oilos in the Beis HaMikdash. If they've been specified, the chatas money goes to Yam HaMelach. The oil money is used for an oila. The Mei Shlomim used to buy a Shlomim without bread. We end up with a list of 4 or 5 cases of ayal nazir, the rams intended for the nazir's carbon, which are brought, but without lechem. All the best to Hatzlacha Rabbah and Besureis Teves.